Cool. Okay. Otherwise, it's the 1st of February, and this is the core devs call. Ali, do you want to start us off, or the different teams?
Yeah, I have two questions actually. The first one is related to the Shadow boot nodes, the long-term boot nodes to add it to the client. I created this pull request to update in our configs repository the ones that DevOps deployed. I don't know the ones that are already there, the old configuration of the chain, who is maintaining those, and if we plan to continue maintaining. Otherwise, we need to replace them with new ones and update the client teams. Maybe if someone from maybe Nethermind can help.
Yeah, we are maintaining the old ones. And yeah, we should definitely migrate to the new ones.
Cool, thank you, Jorge. Just saw your Telegram message. Then the second point is from Discord. I mentioned this on the Telegram group, but well, it's in the document where the GNOs are coming to pay for validators. What's happening with the burn XDAI that is used in the chain. I think I even don't know, so a little bit of clarification will help me, also will help everyone, so we can answer the question and also maybe document that.
Sorry, Ali, do you mind being a little bit more specific? What is the question on this front, actually?
So the question is two main questions. One is related to GNO, what's happening with the GNO flow in the Beacon chain, where the GNOs come to pay for validators, and also on the gas fee side, what's happening with the XDAI that is burned compared with the DAI that is locked in Ethereum.
Yeah, I mean, on the let's do first the GNO question. I am currently not up to speed what currently the status of the withdrawal contract. But yeah, essentially there are I think two possible solutions. Either this withdrawal contract, or either there is a large pool of GNO that we think is large enough. I mean, there are still kind of those 7 million GNOs that are supposed to be burned, but that still exist on main chain. Though in theory they can be bridged to Gnosis Chain, and then they can be put in a contract that kind of can only be accessed by this withdrawal contract, essentially. So long story short, it would mean that there's essentially just this large reserve, and from that one, that will be enough to fund rewards for the next few hundred years. That's option number one. Option number two is that kind of we fork, or I think option number two would require a fork, so that GNO actually at least on chain mintable in the same way that ETH is minted on Ethereum if rewards are given. Again, of course, the difference is that ETH is a native asset and GNO is a contract, or kind of is a token, but fundamentally it would still be the same thing. So that would require to hard fork the GNO. I mean, the token contract would need to be either forked, or I think currently the bridge has minting rights, so maybe that can be redirected to the withdrawal contract. I'm not 100% sure about that, but fundamentally, yeah, those are different options. Ruben, you raised your hand.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, have you seen the contract proposal shared by Dapline last week? There are just 4 options. And like based on our discussions, we more lean to the flow B or flow C because they are less error prone, like less failure prone, but they require user action later. I don't know, are we gonna discuss this today or when? Or when we'll wait for Dapline to be back?
Can I give an update on this? Actually, I had a call with Dapline at Monday, so we discussed this problem, and we did not find anything better than just relying on new reserves on the withdrawal contract. For sure, regarding Martin's proposal on minting bridge GNO token is weak in long term, also because main token is is on Ethereum side, and it will be not closerized using bridge token. So we decided to just start writing in the way that withdrawal control relies on its own reserves.
I mean, should it be funded beforehand? Like,
we decided that withdrawal contract will be the same entity as deposit contract, so it basically have all access to the deposited GNO.
All right. Okay, and should be there any updated documentation or spec on this?
If you remember, HackMD file that line sent to one of the, to Telegram chat, I think. He just wrote some notes at the end of it. I will send now. And
okay, I see. Like withdrawal contract equals deposit contract, right? Okay. All right, I see.
Can someone remind me how it's actually done on Ethereum? Because I mean, on Ethereum, if you send Ether to the deposit contract, it's actually not burned. I mean, the Ether is technically, I mean, you can almost semantics whether it's burned or not, because I mean, it's kind of burned, but it's still there.
No, but I mean, like if we're going full cycle with a withdrawal, so then first you send to create a validator, you send a deposit, it gets locked in a smart contract forever, essentially. It never is. Then the beacon chain reads the logs, figures out that the deposit was done, registers it on the beacon chain, and the beacon chain is actually a live number that changes and adjusts the number again, because ETH is not a token, it's not a ERC20 token, right? So it can be stored as just a number. So this number increases, so decreases, then you exit, then this number stops being increased to decrease, to like freezes. You wait for the validator to fully exit, and then with the withdrawal, you basically get a special message to, okay, because you have this withdrawal credentials, which is essentially an ETH1 address, and you have a message that tells that increment this ETH1 address by X, and that's what it exactly does, and that's roughly.
But Igor, at that moment when essentially new, well, not exactly new, but whatever, when Ether is minted, at least from an execution layer perspective, Ether is minted. At that moment, it doesn't touch the withdrawal contract, right?
No, well, yeah, it just means the on the address that you.
So kind of technically, I mean, again, it's kind of a definition question. But technically, it would mean if people constantly would deposit and immediately withdraw, and deposit and immediately withdraw, kind of the total amount of Ether would go up. Of course, that's not really true, because actually the Ether in the deposit contract is kind of burned or inaccessible. But just like from a client perspective, then the total amount of Ether that kind of somewhere exists on the chain increases, right?
Yeah, but like there is the only way from the execution layer perspective, I mean, to burn ETH, and this the only thing that happens after the long hard fork. Like before the long hard fork, like you couldn't burn ETH at all, like because it will be still in some address. It could be like 0x0000 or whatever. Like you can, like when we did like this supply actually calculation, just okay, these 5 addresses, we know that it's essentially locked there, so we just ignore them because otherwise it always just goes up.
I think there was actually some super weird glitch where you could actually burn something with self-destruct. I don't exactly remember, but anyhow, I mean that's more an anecdote.
I can double check, but I think like it's a bit a semantic question, because for until London, like we called things burned when they were just sent to 0 address, for instance, and technically it was like burned. But
and I guess in a way, Ether sent to the contract address is now also. I mean, the the deposit address is also kind of a burn address. I mean,
yeah, I mean, like, but that was from the beginning essentially. Right now, it's also like because in reality, what it means like semantically, there is like one if chain, right? There is both execution and consensus layer, and by sending if to the deposit contract, you're essentially transferring them from the execution layer into the consensus layer, and then it's kind of disappear on the execution layer. But yeah. I can check one more time what's happening also, because it's also interesting what's going on the consensus layer at this point.
But just to kind of high level, that means on Ethereum, there's a deposit into the deposit contract, and once it comes back from the consensus layer, it's not taken from the deposit contract. Instead, it's kind of just newly minted. And now, if I understood Ihor correctly, we are, however, suggesting to take GNO out of the deposit contract again. Is this correct?
Yep.
But that would also mean that the deposit contract could, or like, would be kind of underfunded, or could potentially be underfunded if everyone would withdraw, right?
Yeah, but if we need to pay in bridge GNO reverse, we need to follow this solution. We can't like mint it from anywhere.
Right. I mean, yeah. I guess I missed the discussion last week. Maybe Guillaume first.
So unfortunately, I didn't look at withdrawals on mainnet that much. So I mean, I can find the answer if you're interested. One question I had is if when you do the withdrawals, you pass some kind of proof to say, hey, I have those, I have accessed this deposit, and I would like to withdraw, and presumably you have a mechanism to make sure that you can't withdraw more than you actually earned since, or at least more than you have earned plus deposited. One question I have is, how do you could do the same thing, like you could always pass a proof that you deposited in the contract, and you can remove from the contract, assuming the contract has a remove function. But the question is, how do you pass those proofs? Because if you need some kind of proof-based thing that something has not been consumed. Otherwise, indeed, you're right. You would be able to withdraw more than you have, and you would drain the deposit contract this way. Do you guys know?
Yeah, Lion said me the flow of this. So actually, there is a spec he wrote. Practically, we will follow the Ethereum code-based changes. Yeah, it's not described here, but in GitHub, I think, proposal. I will send a link now after I will talk. So what it actually does, it is going through on the consensus layer, and it is doing withdrawals the same way on Ethereum side that is done, but instead of minting on the consensus layer new ETH, we will call withdraw function on the withdrawal contract. Actually, in practice, as we said, it will be a deposit contract, and that will just check that this system transaction, that this transaction can be called by anyone except the consensus layer. That's all.
Okay, but that means that we're going through a code path where the withdraw function will not be used on mainnet, and we are going to call that. So we have
from the consensus layer. So when block is built, or at the
Yeah.
start, but I think at the end, it will be part of the build block functions that will be also checked on the other nodes. But the idea is the following: they will just proceed all the withdrawals and call this predefined function.
Yeah. So it will go through the withdrawal execution layer. Execution payload call. You get a list of withdrawals, and you call the system transaction. Like you call you use the system transaction to call the withdraw function on every contract. Okay, well, that should be fine if withdrawals can be trusted. That contract can be trusted.
Not every contract, just one contract.
Yeah, just one contract. But I mean, you call it multiple times with every withdrawal request.
Practically, it will be one call, but one call per block. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Understood.
I send the link to the chat regarding what we discussed.
So in summary, the withdrawals will come from the deposit contract, and or kind of, and that can in addition be filled up with kind of burned GNO from, or yeah, we could kind of send more GNO to this withdraw contract to kind of account for the additional GNO that's kind of created through block rewards or attestation or whatever.
Definitely, yes.
Sorry, but does that mean you are minting those tokens? Because they don't exist, right? I mean, they don't exist outside of the beacon chain.
So we have the advantage that on Ethereum there's still 7 million GNO kind of controlled by the DAO that where the DAO already made the decision to burn them, but they still exist. So and we still, the DAO still has the ability to actually access them. But they are right. So this is exactly the 7 million that are in this vesting contract that was just shared. Exactly. So those are not meant to ever come, but essentially we could engineer it in such a way that we can use those tokens to bridge them into the deposit contract directly, let's say.
But doesn't that mean that what happens when you run out of those 7 million? Because
right. I don't think that's an issue because like we have 3 million GNO total kind of. We have 3 million GNO kind of that's kind of the maximum that exists. And let's say we even assume I don't know, 50% of that would be actually staked, which would mean kind of we have today 100,000 validators. That would mean 15 times as much, so 1.5 million validators. At 1.5 million validators, the reward would be in the area of I don't know, 3%, 3-4% a year. So that's long story short, it should be enough for the next 200 years at least.
And one last question. Sorry, I know Jorge has been raising his hand, and I'm sorry for hogging the thing. But could we instead have some kind of minting contract, like put them? Because I'm wondering if you go through the bridge and you send them to the deposit contract without calling. I guess you could do that without calling a function. Although I don't know. Yeah, that should work. But otherwise, you will get a deposit contract connected to the bridge address. Yeah, like basically I'm thinking, is that going to work, that scheme, to send those extra GNO to the deposit contract itself?
I mean, that 100% works. So I mean, I think other solutions would work as well, but yes, we can kind of, from Gnosis DAO that holds those tokens currently, we can trigger a transaction that that goes into the bridge, and you can specify the output transaction, the output address on the other chain, and that can be the deposit contract.
Right, but my question was, what is the from address in that case?
I mean, the from is from the Gnosis DAO on Ethereum mainnet.
Gnosis DAO on Ethereum mainnet, yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, sorry, I'll keep thinking that, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there would be an alternative solution to simply give, kind of to modify the GNO token contract on Ethereum, on Gnosis Chain, and simply give this withdraw contract, or kind of this withdraw functionality minting rights. That would be the alternative, I guess. But I think it's I don't have really a strong opinion about those two approaches.
Have we considered to directly modify the state of the MGNO contract with the system transaction, or not with the system transaction, just from the node itself? Like, it's, at least for me, if it's an ERC20 token, then it means that we can compute the specific slot in storage where is the balance of a certain address is kept. So what we could do is, right before we call the system transaction with the withdrawal functions, we could increase the balance of a withdrawal contract on the MGNO address. So now when we call the withdrawal function on the withdrawal contract, it would have the exact amount of GNO being withdrawn at its disposal on the MGNO contract. So it could just issue a regular ERC20 transfer from the MGNO contract up to the withdrawing address. So I think that makes sense. And from an implementation perspective on the client, it's simple enough, like a few lines of code. If we compute because the slot will be computed beforehand, like it would be just hard coded in the code, and that's it. So I think that's it will be the most similar solution to Ethereum, because we will be basically minting MGNO on Gnosis Chain, same as Ethereum kind of mints the ETH on the execution layer when it is withdrawn. And we require no changes on the deposit contract, which on the MGNO contract, which is something that I think we want to keep as it is.
Oh,
have we considered alternative?
So, sorry, just as a note taker question, is this an alternative approach, or is it riffing on the deposit contract approach? It's alternate, right?
It's a deposit contract approach. Like every approach will be a deposit. No. It's a withdrawal contract approach, but yeah, it's alternative to the previous approach.
Sorry, guys. I mean, probably that is part of the document, but I just realized we also have the MGNO GNO situation. So far we are only talking about MGNO, I guess. And currently there is no option to convert MGNO to GNO. So is that discussed was that discussed last call?
Is it not discussed last call? I discussed it with Lion on Monday, and a part of work I'm doing is unwrapping logic in the wrapper, in the MGNO wrapper.
Sorry, once again?
I said that unwrapping logic on the MGNO wrapper is part of the work I'm doing now.
I see. But that also would need to be hard forked, or that can be done without a hard fork?
There is a proxy, so we can just run an upgrade. Also regarding alternative approach George presented, just will add a few sentences. That's basically the question: what do we need to maintain? Do we need to maintain ability for for withdrawing MGNO, the exact amount of MGNO token in any case, or we need to maintain token bridge functionality, like stability that number of GNO on one side is equal to number of GNO of the other side. That's just the question between these two properties. We can't maintain both, and we can maintain just one of these two. And that's more or less like business decision. Do we guarantee bridge users that their token are fully collateralized on the Gnosis Chain side, or do we maintain function of validators that they will receive their minted tokens, minted GNO tokens, MGNO.
Yeah, I mean, I would think I said that on previous calls. I would tend towards kind of taking a view that GNO is native. I mean, so far GNO was initially native on Ethereum. I would try to kind of change the perspective and say GNO is native on Gnosis Chain, and kind of if there is GNO bridged to Ethereum, that, or kind of the GNO that will still be on Ethereum will be more seen as it's a claim against GNO on Gnosis Chain and not the other way around.
That's one of the ways, and in this way we do not mint. We just will mint MGNO on each withdrawal. But this decision needs to be like done. Also depends how I will implement, in this case, withdrawal contract. So if you can like make a decision, maybe you don't need Stefan or anyone else, and just press say to me, please.
So this looks like more a business decision than technical, in my understanding, right?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, yes. I mean, so also, I think it's, of course, also has a technical component, and I think from a technical perspective, it's cleaner to say to make GNO kind of first class citizen on the chain, and try to reduce the dependency to the bridge and to Ethereum as much as possible, and say kind of GNO is native on Gnosis Chain, and then kind of there is a third-party bridge in a way to Ethereum, but that's the perspective and not the other way around. That kind of Gnosis is, but yeah, I think it probably we should just write about that high-level decision in the forum, and I'm not exactly sure if we should or need to do a DAO vote on it, but certainly it should be a public topic. I mean, at the end, it's also kind of more or less, I mean, mainly semantics. Of course, like in various edge cases, it could matter. If there are no problems, it shouldn't really matter. But yeah.
I think just to keep in time, and also note that deadline isn't with us this week. I think there's some stuff that I think you, Martin, and I can follow up in the interim, and we can use the Telegram group to coordinate on it. Should we close up this topic and move to the core dev team updates? Cool. Yeah. Otherwise, Aragon team, if you're online.
We're fixing some small issue with is block number, and I'm going to make some preparations for the for requiring IPA 170 with our Shanghai update. And then I'm going to look at the tweaks necessary for withdrawals, but probably that will be dependent on Nethermind's work on it.
Sorry, just so that I got it correctly, is prep EIP 170?
Yes, so that we agreed that, so currently Gnosis Chain is configured that EIP 170 is, which is, yeah, that was part of Spurious Dragon, if I'm not mistaken, but for Gnosis Chain it was omitted. But because in Shanghai we are enabling another EIP 3860, which depends on 170, we decided that we are enabling 170 as well in the Shanghai fork on Gnosis Chain.
Got it. Cool. The Nethermind team?
Yeah, I think Ruben probably has more updates, but in general, I think we haven't had any progress in like withdrawals. We're just waiting on this spec and the contract to settle. We have already like a proof of concept implementation that suffices for now for what we know about withdrawals for Gnosis Chain.
Yeah, basically withdrawals are ready. There are a few small things to tweak, and probably at the end of this week or next week, we can try to do some local testing, like emulating the contract, etc. That's it. Basically, it's done.
Yeah, and there is a few small things that we should do before Shanghai merge, Gnosis specifically. This is about scanning the chain for EOF opcodes and checking this max code size limit if there is like if we have transactions that are above this limit. Yeah,
we have. Yeah, I was saying in chat like PostDAO had its own code size limit on a PostDAO contract. Like there was this PostDAO contract which was called permission contract, and this contract would check the code size limit of every like the code being deployed by every transaction, and it would fail if it was above a certain limit. So definitely before the merge, we have like a safety there. I'm not sure after the merge what could have happened.
do you know the value of this limit? The exact
Well,
number?
it's definitely lower than Ethereum mainnet, because I remember that there was this I think CalSwap or something like that they were trying to deploy a contract for a long time on this chain, and they didn't succeed, and it was because of this contract. Like they checked the code size and they were failing because the contract was being too large. And as far as I understand, this contract was already deployed on Ethereum mainnet, so definitely we had a lower limit than Ethereum. But we could check like it's on chain. We can check the contract. We could go to the address and check the value because it's on chain.
And it is important to enable EIP 170 only with Shanghai, because there were historical transactions that were above that didn't honor the limit of EIP 170. So yeah, so don't enable them. Don't enable it for historical transactions.
Yeah.
Well, Gateway.
Igor had to drop.
I think Igor had to drop off, right? Ali,
Yeah.
you want
No, I'll read the message. This week we finalized Chiado checkpoint sync endpoint. I fixed some tracking issue in Aragon reported by the user, waiting for more traffic from Gnosis RPC. And on Gnosis DevOps, Giacomo just told me that they just fixed, and it's related to the previous one, the Chiado boot nodes. I just merged the PR, and I'll document it in the doc site.
You mean that the boot nodes were updated?
Gnosis DevOps added 2 long-term boot nodes for Chiado, and I include them in the configs.
Okay, so the configs also on like Nethermind side should be updated so they go with the release.
That would be great.
Yeah, so could you send the link or I don't know, PR to our repository?
I'll send the link to it's over there, but I pasted in the Telegram group.
Okay.
Cool. Are there any other issues to bring up? Cool. Otherwise, Martin, do you want to return the discussion, or was there any other issue that I think we should address? Or Felipe, actually, if you're on the call.
Yes, I am. One, I don't have much to say except that last week we talked about running Nimbus and Aragon nodes, which I did. There are 6 validators running Nimbus and Aragon that are publishing blocks just fine and tester stations. I mean, everything seems to be working as expected on both pruned and non-pruned nodes. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's nice to see an Aragon block producer, essentially.
Actually, I guess there is one, well, maybe that's just more politics based on the Gnosis side, but yeah, no, let's not talk about this now, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, I think the follow-ups here are really for the withdrawal contract. So I think Ihor will drive on some of this, and hopefully we'll have a more productive discussion when Deb lands back next week. Cool. Thanks,
maybe,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Martin.
Oh, well, I was actually, the 2 things were one asking you what's the guest state, but the other, yeah.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So actually, let me start with the other one thing. So I did. What's their name? Prismatic Labs actually merged the PR that I created. So now you should be able to run, and that's what I wanted to ask. You should be able to run stock Prism on the network without having all those this weird release system. So they merged it 25th, which must have been, yeah, it was last week. During the interop, I lobbied. So they did it. So next release, as soon as there's a new release, you should be able to run. If it doesn't run, let me know. So of course, for it to run, you need to pass the config, like the specific config file. But that's all you need. You don't need to to have the specific release system. And for Geth, so I kind of got a bit tired of trying to get SnapSync to work, so I went back to full sync. So I've been asking questions. I mean, Andrew has been very nice, give me some tips. I'm sure I'll have some questions with Lukasz, who just raised his hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so if SnapSync from Tanishq isn't working, then we can have this. We were talking about last week about doing this kind of dump of the state.
Yep.
So if we can agree on the layout, then we can do that.
Yes, but I figured that actually thanks to the what's that called, to the beacon sync, like the amount of stuff that I need to support for a full sync is very limited. So I time box myself, but I'm going to spend the week trying to get full sync to work. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to let it run, and I'll get back to you about this specific discussion we had in Austria. But I think if I can get full sync to work and not bother anybody else, it might be the fastest way to do it after all. Yeah, I'll get back to you, don't worry. If I'm blocked, you'll know about it.
Okay, I think full sync is harder. Yeah, I don't think this is like that a big deal to dump the tree at some point and for you to import and start from this point. So
I'm quite happy. Yeah, I'm quite happy to try it. Sure. Okay, I'll get back to you on this then.
What was the issue with our SnapSync?
I don't know if it's your SnapSync. The issue is that I never got it to even start. I don't know. Like this machine I have, or at least this install I have is not really cooperating when I sync. Like even when I sync, I don't mean like with guests. When I sync the network, I don't know what's happening, and it's kind of I got frustrated. Basically, that's what happened.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because on the end of the day, we want to have SnapSync server, so just wondering if we should go.
I agree. At the same time, if I get full sync to work, there will be a SnapSync server. But I just, like I said, I got frustrated. I spent a lot of time on this without a lot of success. So I'd rather try another method and get back to it at a later time.
Cool, thank you.
And yeah, that's it.
Cool. The one more thing I had was kind of coming back to Ali's initial comment and the initial two questions. One was regarding GNO, the other was regarding XDAI. Yeah, kind of maybe just a summary. So what's the situation right now? Right now, XDAI, at least very small, currently very small amounts. Of course, it could become more substantial, but small amounts are currently burned, obviously, on Gnosis Chain because we have 1559 and XDAI is a native currency and so on. So that means that long-term, specifically if the burn gets larger, then there is a difference between, let's say there's 1 million XDAI locked or DAI locked on Ethereum mainnet, and kind of initially there were 1 million XDAI on Gnosis Chain. After 1 year, let's say, whatever, after some time frame, 1,000 are burned. Then, of course, we only have 900,000, 900, whatever, on Gnosis Chain. So there's a difference. So so far we haven't really specified it that much, other than kind of that is up to the DAO to kind of be in control of this kind of extra DAI. So possible steps could be to the thing that would come closest to Ethereum would be to, let's say, take this DAI and buy back and burn GNO. That would be kind of the closest to what Ethereum does, because in Ethereum, obviously the staking token is burned with transaction fees. We use DAI for transaction fees, but of course we can indirectly still burn the staking token. Obviously, doesn't make any sense to burn DAI. That's of course not useful. But theoretically, we can also say it's kind of just under DAO control. I think I'm leaning. I think that's a public discussion, and again, probably more like whatever business discussion. The one thing that is technical is to just keep track of those numbers and kind of ideally as precise as possible. And I think that goes back to this, I think meme discussion. I don't know, that was a hot topic 2 years ago, I believe. The question of, is it actually possible, or how easy is it possible to calculate the full kind of number of Ether in existence on Ethereum? And of course, then the same topic would be for the total number of XDAI on Gnosis Chain. So that would be a nice thing to, at some point, kind of just do a bookkeeping and see, after 5 years of the chain running, what is actually currently the total amount of XDAI on the chain, and how does it compare to the total amount of DAI in the bridge. And yes, I mean, we very much expect that the amount of DAI in the bridge is larger than the, but yeah, I think we currently don't have great support for that. So I guess my question to you guys would be, how easy is it to calculate the full kind of circulating amount of XDAI? Or, I mean, the equivalent question would be, how hard is it to calculate the full circulating amount of Ether on Ethereum?
So depends on the method how you want to do it. Do you mean like in client? Like what's the idea here?
I guess just in any, I mean, could we right now get a reliable number of how much XDAI does exist?
Yeah, so it's not a big problem to investigate the state, for example, in the client and tell you got the certain block, and then from the certain block you can have a bookkeeping that kind of calculates that and keeps that. I think the easiest, the fastest method would be on the Aragon, due to their how they store state in this plain state. But it's possible also in Nethermind to achieve that, because we have to only like calculate how much in each block, how much there are rewards, right, and how much we burned, and pretty much it, and go from there. That's the data. We can have like a custom RPC method even for that.
Just reading Jorge's comment here. So yeah, I think there are two things how XDAI gets kind of burned. So one is literally burned by using 1559, so as base fee, transaction fees. The other thing is, of course, bridging it back to Ethereum. And in that case, you're right. In that case, it's not actually burned. In that case, it's actually sent to this burn address, essentially. I mean, or again, I mean, that's semantics about whether or.
No, I mean EIP 1559 XDAI is not burned. Is sent to some address which is specified on chain spec.
Really?
I am not fully, and I probably should check this out in detail. If I'm not wrong, Karpathy already harvests the XDAI fees for 1559, and the withdrawal address is actually specified in the governance contract.
Well, there are like 17,000 XDAI on that address right now. Yeah, so every XDAI that is paid as a base fee on EIP 1559 goes to that address that you're looking at in the browser right now.
But just the chain spec, or the place in the chain spec when it is specified.
Sorry, Mark, I didn't
Yes.
get it.
I sent the place in the chain spec where this address is specified.
Oh yeah, yes.
If I remember correctly, this was meant to be used to buy back GNO tokens, right? GNO tokens or something. When we discussed this with Igor, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
So is this an EOA or is this a contract?
Gnosis safe noticing. This is it.
Yeah. Interesting. I had no idea. I thought interesting. But so that means this balance of the address is kind of essentially increasing every block. I mean, every block with that has transactions.
Yes, but the amount is very small.
Of course, yeah. But I mean, at least on EtherScan, it doesn't show. I guess it doesn't show as internal transactions.
I think it's because it is directly added in EVM. It is special code to handle that. That is why it is not shown as internal transaction or anything.
Yeah, the increase is directly in EVM, but I think what Martin says is like the withdrawal from that address, or there's no transaction that uses that exactly now.
But at least I think let's say Block Scout has this get balance or balance change functionality. I believe there you should, I guess, find that. Yeah. Okay, but I mean that's good to know. I was so far under the impression that this was burned and kind of just implicitly available as difference between, but apparently it is explicitly available. Yeah, well, I guess then that we should document and make more visible and kind of actually, I guess, put it under DAO control and whatever. Yeah.
Or perhaps we should just remove it.
Sorry, remove what?
This fee collector.
And kind of do what instead?
Yeah, burn it, same as mainnet.
Yeah, make it closer to Ethereum mainnet. But I don't know. That's a loose idea.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly don't want to kind of burn DAI because obviously that doesn't make any sense. But of course, we could burn XDAI and say, well, we take the difference, or then kind of essentially this DAI becomes available. But I mean, if that already exists, this fee collector address, I assume, I mean, that means kind of, yeah, guess in Aragon, that was obviously one of the things you had to kind of do for Gnosis Chain specifically, because I think in principle that concept doesn't really exist on Ethereum, or? I mean, how easy was it to configure that or to make this a config? I mean, I assume kind of a normal config file doesn't have this parameter because, well, or was this a concept of 1559? I don't think so.
Yeah, we had to write some custom code for Gnosis Chain for that.
Yeah.
We also had minimal base fee, but finally it wasn't introduced. But we were discussing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think looking back, I remember also having the discussion with Igor. I felt back in the day, economically, it wouldn't really, I mean, like economically in the sense that you want to collect fees. I felt the minimal base fee was so low that it wasn't really worth the effort. Today, recently I discussed the scenario where I think it would be worse, where it would be nice to have a minimal base fee, and that is simply to protect better from spam attacks, because right now the base fee on Gnosis Chain is so low. I mean that even with this exponential, or kind of even with this, what is it, 12%? What's the number? 12% increase per block. Even then, if you spam the network, it will take I don't know, probably hours until the base fee is in a range, and until the base fee is in a range where it actually starts to become expensive to spam the network. And that's simply because there are 18 decimals, and you kind of, well, you really, I mean, currently we at the number 7, and we need to go up 18 decimals to come into range where it starts hurting. So if we add a base fee, or if we add a base fee that is whatever, even just 1,000, I mean, that would still be orders of magnitude larger than what is today. So it would practically, for regular users, don't really make any difference. But for this extreme case that there's a spam attack, it would change kind of the period from hours to, let's say, 10 minutes until it starts kind of kicking in, and kind of it becomes very expensive to continue to spam the chain. Exactly, 1 GWay would be sufficient, or setting it to 1 GWay would be sufficient to make sure that after 10 minutes of full blocks, it really becomes expensive to continue.
It's custom code, but it's fine for me. I remember that we had this conversation at some point, and Tomasz was really advocating against it, but I'm not as purist on that, so I don't see a big problem with it.
I remember that Tomasz had really strong objection about this minimal base fee, but I don't recall details here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what the arguments were, but okay, we need to.
Yeah, we can try to find the conversation, or and just ask Tomasz.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe if some of you who were last week in Switzerland, maybe a few words just of kind of what were the main topics there, or how did that go?
4844 withdrawals, of course, with Shanghai. I think it goes pretty well. We had some devnets for 4844. We had working shadow fork for Shanghai. Yeah, and that's it. Generally, lots of discussion. Łukasz?
And some other things is like how to include SSZ in execution layer without compromising user experience of and third-party tools. And I think there is a decent idea how to do it.
Sorry, what was SSC again?
SSZ is like a different serialization format from RLP. So like for example, for transactions. Different serialization format that is used on the CL side, and we want to use it on the EL side too, like completely, or at least as much as possible. But that could easily compromise like external tools. So the idea is to have this kind of backward compatibility wrappers for transactions from RLP to SSZ, so we can like represent transaction in both. So internally we can represent it in SSZ, but if we need, we can like convert it back to RLP easily. That was like pretty big thing that can potentially like has some issues with just compatibility. And I think it might go in Cancun, the same fork that 4844 is going in, because it already brings the SSD format to the execution layer. So we might want to just do it like properly. Yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of like smaller topics to like EOF, etc. EOF, I think, is going to be shelved. I don't think it will be pushed very hard in recent time.
I think it's going to, I mean, I don't know if Vitalik's still interested in it, so I think it's going to be like, they had a scope expansion, so I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but yeah, there's still, I don't think it's been shelved. I think there's, it's a worse thing actually happening to it. There's enough interest to keep it alive, while not enough interest to get it delivered now.
I would say not enough consensus to get it delivered, like, because the state it needs to go in. It's more of like what should we deliver exactly, and then there's the question of when, right? It's like more this way. So I think it's fine, but I don't think it will be delivered this year. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
And there were vertical trees, but I'm not the expert here to give.
That's what I was going to say. Next year is vertical trees, so if it's not this year, it's it's another year. Yeah, vertical trees, vertical testnet, and also the beginning of a spec, or at least a spec draft, as the Electra fork of the beacon chain. So yeah, because I think the one for Deneb is the one for 4844, and then Electra would be the star they pick for vertical trees. So there's a spec, a beginning of a spec for Electra, and we're going to, yeah, I mean, that happened then. More investigations to happen over the course of the year.
On the vertical trees, can you answer if, I mean, currently people are exploring bridge designs where you kind of you essentially prove that the block header is correct in whatever form, could be, but somehow you get the block header on chain, and then you make Merkle tree proofs that whatever specific event or specific storage slot in this block header was in a specific way. Would Merkle trees break that, or are they somehow backwards compatible?
No, they're not backwards compatible. You would need to write vertical tree specific code. It would definitely work the same. You could provide a proof that your slot at this block head was exactly that. So it doesn't break your flow, but you would have to write specific code for this.
Okay, so it essentially means if you today try to build a trustless bridge, then you're screwed, because that will likely, or yeah, you need upgrade mechanisms.
You need an upgrade mechanism, absolutely.
Yeah, which will no longer really make it trustless. Yeah. Okay, good to know.
Well, you can always deploy a new bridge. Because the old one will refuse everything, so
the assets are not stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, and how, I mean, is this already kind of somewhat concretely discussed, how that transition could work, or will it literally just be from one block to another, or?
Yes, it will be from one block to another. Well, okay, that's the favored mechanism so far.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I also need to go soon. But if you have questions about vertical trees, I can talk about it all day. So just let me know. Yeah, I can answer those questions.
Cool. No, I think that's from my side. That's it for the call.
So actually, I have one more quick question. Do we have consensus spec tests specific for Gnosis, or do we just use the Ethereum ones and assume it will work, or how does that work in the consensus side?
Sorry, do you mind repeating the question?
No, I don't. So, do we have consensus spec tests for specifically for Gnosis, basically, or do we just assume clients will work if they work for Ethereum, or yeah, that's the question basically.
That's a very good test. That's a very good question, and I think that's a great one for when Dapline is back. To my knowledge, I don't think we have any Gnosis specific tests so far. Yeah.
All right, because basically Nimbus would really like to have them in order to consider Gnosis specific releases. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. I think going on a limb, and I was wrong once today already, is that I don't think there's any test coverage, but I think it's best to check with Collab for Prism and Dapline for the other clients. I would be very surprised if there was test coverage. Cool. Otherwise, we're 8 minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for coming. See you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
Good. Thanks, everyone.